Dawn of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about this album right here. This is Leon Vynehall, Rare Forever, released on Ninja Tune on April 30th, 2021. Seeing as how I was such a huge fan of his 2018 album, Nothing Is Still, by the way, thank you for making that my most viewed video on this channel, I knew that I was going to have to talk about this album. But it just so happened that a lot of the preview tracks that I'd heard led me to believe that it was going to be one of my favorite records of this year, undoubtedly. Now that I've given this album quite a few listens, I want to share my thoughts and opinions of this album with you guys and let you know if it meets the quality standards set by his previous albums. So with that being said, yeah, let's talk about this guy. So for those of you who don't know who Leon Vynehall is, he is a music producer, musician, and DJ from the UK who came to prominence in the early 2010s through a series of well-received 12 inches and EPs through respected electronic, house, and techno labels like Royal Oak, 3024, Os Music, and more. Later, he would receive even more praise through the releases of his mini LPs like Music for the Uninvited in 2014 and Roygus in 2016, as well as his first official full-length, the aforementioned Nothing Is Still in 2018 on Ninja Tune, and his contribution to the long-running DJ Kicks compilation series that came out in 2019. Being no stranger to concept albums, with Music for the Uninvited being themed around his experience of listening to his mother's cassettes while being driven to school, Roygus, yeah, I'm really bad with names. Comparing the mating rituals of birds of paradise with the behavior of clubbers, to Nothing Is Still being inspired by his grandparents' experience of emigrating to the United States from the UK in the 1960s. Rare Forever follows these ideas by being a concept about, well, himself. Based on a track-by-track breakdown that he did for Stereo Gum, Vynehall seems to be spilling his guts about where he was in life at the time of making this record. So as you might guess, Rare Forever is quite a personal, emotional, dense, sometimes sad, sometimes joyous, sometimes reflective record. And the critics seem to like it, with this being his highest reviewed record to date, earning it an 84 average on Metacritic, with Pop Matters giving the album particularly high praise. But where do I stand in all of this? First off, I gotta say this is one of the best sounding records that I've heard, not only this year, but in a very long time. And in a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of Floating Points' Ileana from back in 2015, with its attention to sonic detail and making sure all of the elements are auditory, but also at the same time somewhat subtle. So there's a lot of different elements going on here that require you to pay close attention to it to really fully get the best listening experience from this project. And as a result, this is easily one of the warmest, luscious, and just most enveloping records that I've heard in a long time. Ultimately, whenever I found myself sort of drifting away from paying close attention to this album, there would be something on this record that would drag me back in. There's no point on here where I ever felt like I was being lulled into a state of complacency. And I always felt like there was something always ear-catching about this record that made me want to pay attention to it. But even beyond the just overall sonic aesthetic quality of this record, it's honestly a joy to listen to. Nothing Is Still for me has become more of a mood record these days. I don't really listen to it as often as some of the other stuff in his catalog, especially like Music for the Uninvited. But this, I've found myself pressing play on the moment that it finishes, and even in moments where I can't figure out what I want to listen to, I find myself gravitating back to this record without even really giving it a second thought. And I think that's really just a testament to how good the compositions, the productions, and the songs on here really are. The album is made up of like equal parts full-on songs and interlude tracks, and they sort of do a great job of gluing the album together and making for this seamless listening experience, even with the sort of start stop nature of some of the more up-tempo techno tracks that are on here, and some of the just straight up ambient soundscape stuff on here. But even the more ambient stuff on here have these elements to them that will grab your attention, whether it's the harshness of the second track on here, In Greater Than Pin has like this distorted, nasty sound to it that I really, really like. And then later on in the album, towards the end with Farewell Magnus Gabbro, has this scenic, lush, very serene, peaceful, calming element to it. There's really sort of all facets of Leon Vynehall's career going on here. So you've got some of the more techno-y stuff from his Music for the Uninvited, as well as his assortment of 12 inches, as well as the more soundtracky, more ambient soundscapes sort of stuff that was present throughout the entirety of Nothing Is Still. And despite the fact that some of the techno tracks on here are dance floor ready, and they definitely have like the most bump and the most force to them, they still don't feel out of place against, say, a scenic landscape track like An Exhale, which features this amazing crescendo of arpeggiated synths that really just build to this musically orgasmic climax. But the real winner track on here has to be the opener for me. I absolutely love Ichi Ego, I think that's what it is. This track from the get-go was the one that made me realize that I was gonna love this album. It's beautiful layering of synth strings chorus over a slightly menacing bass line that has this light little flute touch and some very old school trip hop kind of drums. It's everything that I liked about the track Movements, I think it was, from Nothing Is Still, and just turned up to the nth degree. And not only that, this feels like that much more colorful than Nothing Is Still. Elsewhere on this album, Mothra and Snakeskin Infinity Has Been are two of the best techno tracks on here and feature the same sort of brilliant arranging while still having that techno bump behind them. Also super detailed and super layered. And I have to point out that Mothra has this absolutely brilliant fake out that you have to hear in order to get a sense of like how masterful Leon Vynehall's skills of arranging truly are on this record. In all honesty, I can't really think of that much more to say about this album. I think it's brilliant from front to back. Leon Vynehall shows that he's basically taken everything from his past records and combined it into one sound. This is undoubtedly one of my favorite records of the year. I have a feeling that I'm going to be going back to it more and more throughout the rest of this year. And despite the fact that he claims that this is one of his most personal records to date, I find that this is honestly one of his most listenable albums to date. As I stated before, I've been listening to this album ever since I picked it up a few months ago, and I have a feeling that I'm going to be listening to it more and more throughout the year. I don't know what else to say other than this album gets my highest recommendation. Definitely pick it up. Definitely listen to it if you haven't heard it yet. And I have a very strong feeling that it's going to rank very, very highly on my end of the year list. So keep an eye out for this guy towards the end of this year. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to this album for yourself, please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you want to hear this album for yourself, please head over to my WordPress blog, because that's where I'll be posting music links to any of the albums that I talk about on this channel. Make sure you're here on Sundays for Live for the Record Room, my live streams where I play records like the ones that I talk about in these videos, as well as a whole host of records in my collection that I don't get a chance to talk about on this channel. And make sure to head over to my Mixcloud in the event that a stream gets pulled from this YouTube channel, because that's where I'll be archiving any of the live streams that are no longer up on my YouTube channel. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!